I'll give it another minute. Yeah, perfect. The first slide should be up, and we'll get things rolling. Like I say, this collaborate thing, we're going to get it done. We're, but it just kills me the number of, like I say, consecutive miracles that are required each week to pull this off. Today the slides didn't want to load. This is actually the deck that I was using before. It may be missing the homework at the end, but that's easy because that's already loaded up on your Blackboard page. So, one thing I wanted to talk about before we actually get started is I realize everybody's in different places, and obviously you're doing this right now, but we won't be that long tonight. But at 7 o'clock tonight, they're gearing up right here in the Rasmussen Hall for this big property management and real estate program. They've, obviously Terry Fields, I don't know if you know him, but fairly young guy, pretty fired up, knows a lot about property management, and he is, putting together a pretty good program. Obviously, it's a group effort, but he's one of the key folks. I've done a fair amount of real estate, mainly as an investor and a speculator. I also have a license in it, and the part that Terry brings to it, though, is more of a property management background, which for the long term is the best way to go. So, all right, it's 5:31. We'll go ahead and get started. No, yeah, I just talked about, somebody just chatted whether the public is welcome at that event, and I got mixed messages. It said invitation only. Then I just went down and talked to Terry, and I'm teaching another class later on, so they expect a lot of people coming by. And to tell you the truth, if there's anybody with an interest in that program, take a look at it. I'm hearing that somebody can't hear. Other students appear to be hearing fine. Is my reply, since he's kind of come out. Again, if this thing doesn't work, the whole thing's going to go up on YouTube in a while anyway. So we won't worry about too much. Like I say, trying to get this system up and operating perfectly has been a challenge. The volume is a bit low for me. Yeah, you can hear a little bit better. Okay, so I'm going to press on, and I'll QC the whole thing before I put it out on YouTube. But what we need to talk about tonight is money management strategy. Now, this stuff can get pretty, you don't want to be the kind of person who's chasing every little penny and stuff to the point where, seriously, you could be working harder at your day job or get a second job, and there's Dave Ramsey and these other folks on the radio who just make a career out of chasing every nickel, and sometimes I think they lose sight of the big picture. Not always, but if that's your thing. But what you don't want to do is you don't want to make this a tedious kind of anal task where you're squabbling over every cent. So, but what you do need to do is you need to keep track of your money, especially when you're on the younger phase, because any money you do put away with the time value of money, like we talked about last week, is going to be huge in terms of headphones are working. Thanks. Others. Okay, so everybody seems to be up now. Anyway, any money you can put away at this point in your life is going to be worth a considerable amount, even with inflation. If you put away, a small amount now, it's as much as a older guy putting away, a major percentage of his paycheck. And then if you have some sort of 401k program or 401b like we have here in the education side, and your employer's got a matching program and you aren't taking advantage of it, you are getting slaughtered. And then also, even if they don't have a matching program and you aren't putting a fair amount of money in that program, you're paying more taxes than you need to. If you can Uh, we'll talk more about 401ks and other types of investments, but basically that money comes off the gross before the IRS sees it. So let's say you're making 100 grand. If you're putting away almost 20 grand, when you go to pay taxes, you're only paying taxes on a little over 80 grand, which could be a bit different tax bracket, could make you, you start losing out on deductions as your income goes up. So anyway, the big picture is we'll talk more about investments later, but you need to have the money to invest. These are the objectives. So it mainly comes down to, documents to kind of quantify where you are financially, and then a budget. There's some folks asking about what to do with investments right now, in terms of pensions and whether to put it in another plan as well. We're going to have entire sections where we're going to talk about investments, but the answer is probably all of the above, especially if there's anything that says matching. Different programs have different levels of matching, and let's say your employer, like University of Alaska, they have basically a 7% up to a certain limit. It's not that high, but if I put in 7%, they match it with 12. I mean, essentially, my salary just goes up as I do that. So, and also there's a 401 program, so that money, like I said, comes off the tax heap. So these are the objectives. Okay, money management, day-to-day activities, right? How you kind of make ends meet, how you hopefully do not, live paycheck to paycheck. That's what you want to get away from. Opportunity cost, what we're going to try and do, and what you can do through these keeping track of your spending, is get to a point where you can look and say, hey, I spent $500 on restaurants last month. Is my quality of life really, improved by $500 due to all those, meals I ate away? I mean, sometimes it's necessary, but we're talking, over and above that. If you're spending a lot of money doing that, there's an opportunity cost involved. If you put that saved $500 in some sort of program, stocks or some sort of long-term investment, that $500 you're enjoying this month equates to the $5,000 that you don't have, some years down the road when that money would have generated it. And then credit, the more money, I hate fixed expenses. I just really try and keep those under control to the max extent possible. And there's some smart, simple things you can do to keep down on those expenses. But when you start buying things on credit and you've got bills due, you end up with fixed expenses, and you're stuck. Okay, let's look. Okay, so storing financial records, and documents. Some of this you need to do by law. I mean, taxes, once you do your taxes, most of the time, as rule of thumb, is 6 years, you're kind of on the hook. If they audit you and you say, I don't have it, if it's within 6 years, you should have had it, and you got a problem. So you will end up owing them money. Now, most people, the whole notion of getting audited, especially at your stage of the game, is probably not going to happen. There's bigger fish out there. But, you got to have that stuff for six years at least. Now, there's other things, wills and stuff like that, and you got to kind of think about that right now, unfortunately, because if you don't, then the court gets involved, and that's not good, and, you're gone, and your assets are split up the way, either by law or the way the court sees fit, and may not be the way you want to do it. Creating personal, financial sheets, balance statement, cash flow. Most people don't do this, certainly not on a monthly basis, but, a cash flow statement, cash flow, what we're talking about there is, when you get paid on the first, but your rent is due on the first as well, and, has that money got to the account? You got money, but do you have the flow? Do you have liquid cash to cover your bills? You may be, consider yourself pretty good over the span of a month, but on a day-to-day basis, you're not able to meet your bills, and keep yourself out of, you hear businesses fail all the time because of cash flow. They've got money, they're profitable, but the money's not in the right place at the right time. And then creating and implementing a plan, budgeting. Again, you can take this to the extreme, but I think now it's a little bit easier, and I'll show you some things that I think work pretty well to make it a little bit more manageable and not take all of your time. Well, that's not good. Anybody seen slide 6? I'm not seeing slide 6. Okay. I'm going to go this way and pull this thing up here. It's just showing blank slides. That is not good. Okay. I have got other means to figure this out. Let me try this. The problem we were having tonight was it just did not want to load content in terms of these slides. Hate to say it, but we're going to take a small break in the process. I'm going to reload this thing. It looks like it's working. It's exporting a bunch of slides. And we should just have a small break. So anyway, anybody who's thinking about doing the whole property management gig, it doesn't necessarily need to be tonight, but the man you need to talk to is Terry Fields. In terms of programs, he is certainly a person to talk to. Now I'm seeing more content down here when I quickly... Well, there's slides down here. Maybe it just inserted a bunch of gap slides. I'll go back and let me check on a different method. This is only slide 15. Let me do just some quick exploring. Well, if we could just advance the slides, I would be more than happy. Well, we can advance the slides that way. Okay, let's see what happened. We had some blanks in here. Oh, man. Craziness. All right. We're about up to slide 15, so we're going to continue on, and then I will find out where the break happened. This sort of stuff kills me. We all should have a slide in front of us, though, that talks about the cash flow statement. I'll go back after we finish and see if we missed anything. Okay? But a cash flow statement, like I said, this basically, you're talking money coming in, money coming out, just like it sounds, just like a flow. And income is any source of income, wages, salaries, gifts, grants, child support, all that stuff, or pensions. So, that's all on the positive side. And cash flows, well, these are the expenses. Like I said, fixed expenses and variable expenses. So the difference between income and outflows can be either positive or negative. But what the cash flow encompasses is also that time element. Like I say, if normally if you've got bills coming in, monthly bills, mortgages, stuff like that, I try and set everything up for, like, say, the 5th of the month if you're getting paid monthly. I also have I've got some property over in Germany, so that stuff I have to set up for the 15th because I have to do wire transfers and more complex. But, it depends on your situation. But it's not just, it's not just the concept of income, it's the concept of the income being at the right time, at the right place. This doesn't necessarily tell you you've got enough money or the value of your estate or anything like that. It just says in terms of a liquid sense, is the money coming in going to match the outflow? And so that's the cash flow statements. We'll continue on here talking about budgeting for money management. Obviously live within your income, spend money wisely, reach your financial goals. You need to do all of this. But the problem is that very few of us live alone. There's usually whatever your situation is, but there's usually at least two of you, and the way relationships are, you tend to have a spender or a saver. So sometimes a budget, just creating a plan, is just a way to kind of communicate, what's going on, and also kind of enable you to get out of the cycle if you are having to live, just from paycheck to paycheck. You don't want to be in there. That's what I had down here. I'm going to add to this bit. It helps in communication, relieves guilt, because if one of you is the spender, one of you is the saver, you just establish what you're going to do, and then you have some money that clearly can be spent each month without having to feel that you're, dipping in and breaking the plan and causing all sorts of problems. So it needs to be realistic, flexible, and clearly communicated. So, but you can establish all your expenses and maybe look back over past months and see what your normal living expenses are, and then also see what your desired goals are down the road. Even if you decide you really can't save any money at this point, I still would put some notional amount, $20-$50, that just comes off in some sort of automatic transfer to an account, and that just happens before you get the paycheck. So that's, you get to the point where that's not even part of your paycheck, and then when your situations changes, you just bump that amount up. Again, these numbers, these figures I'm talking about, it's a proportion of your income. So, what $20 or $50 is to one person, another person is 500 or 1,000. But some amount, because you really need to take advantage of that time value of money while it's working in your favor at this point in your life. And then also, if there's like I say, any type of program, and it's going to vary depending on your personal circumstances, whether you've got a matching thing or a straight 401k, or a military guy, and you've got the military's got an equivalent called the thrift savings plan. Same idea, and they are good deals, so good a deal that they may be taken away in a few years. So do it while you can. Let's see. Selected a budget system. Mental budget, yeah, that's not really much of a budget. I mean, at least at some point, it doesn't have to be on Excel like a spreadsheet, or you don't necessarily need to get in the Quicken and do all that stuff. But you do need to kind of figure out where your money is going now and then, so that you can figure out if there are some expenses that you can control that are a bit extraneous, that you get them knocked down. I mean, this whole budget app and some of these other things, on an iPhone or whatever, that's not for me. And Quicken, it takes a bit to, well, it's not as bad as it used to be, but it's still kind of an onerous task to go through it. What I do is a little different. I tend to buy everything either on a credit or a debit card. I try not to use cash at all. Now, that can be dangerous, especially if you're using a credit card and you don't have some discipline. But when you go back at the end of the month and you've got all these expenses and everything's itemized, and the stores are itemized, and then you can go, whoa, wait a minute, I spent a ton of money on a specific thing. That's some area to cut down. Another specific thing up here in Alaska, and this is not necessarily personal finance, but it will get your fixed expenses down, is this whole energy rebate program. If you own your own home and you've got anything but a hugely efficient system, my power bills went from 300 to 100, and really didn't cost me a dime. But anyway, stuff like that. When you see what you're spending for utilities and all your other costs, you'll be in a better position to achieve financial goals. Well, that's what I'm saying in terms of one of your fixed expenses really ought to be your investments. It needs to be a set amount, and you also, initially you need to build up sort of a rainy day fund or emergency fund. They talk about 3 to 6 months. It depends. If you're maybe say a school teacher and you've got a fair amount of job security. that figure may be different. If you're in something you enjoy, but it's kind of hard to replace, and you're in fear of that job, perhaps going away at some point, you might want more. Now, again, a lot of people, personal finance, money manager guys, they really frown on credit cards, but smartly used, some amount of cash and also a credit card with that you aren't carrying a balance on, that also gives you a little bit of cushion. Now, obviously, you don't want to jump on and start, racking up all kinds of groceries and things like that on a credit card, unless, of course, you're doing it like I do, just to earn the airline miles to for my kids and stuff. But whether a debit card may be a better choice, because the difference between a debit and a credit card, obviously, a debit card just comes right out of your account, and usually doesn't have any of the it doesn't have any finance charges, but you can bounce it just like you're bouncing a check. Also, you got to look at, and we'll talk about this in other sections, the repercussions for abuse of a debit or a credit card vary. A credit card, by law, most of the time you're protected. Debit cards, it depends on your bank and what kind of, my bank is awesome. They will cover me when I have fraud on it, which, being overseas, I had fraud constantly. And so that was a necessary thing to have. The other thing about when I'm talking about reviewing your debit card and your credit card expenses every month to see where your money is going, you need to do that anyway. I mean, the crime that they had in Europe, and they talk about crime here being, in terms of credit risk and identity fraud being a problem. Over there, it was completely over the top. They had these fake ATMs that they'd set up in town. You'd put your card in, you type in your PIN, and the screen only said one thing, machine out of order, because it wasn't an ATM. All it was a thing to get your credit card, the magnetic strip information, and your PIN. And before you could do anything, before you could walk down to the next ATM, they had cleaned out your account. So my bank was good with it. They knew about it, and that's why they had limits and stuff on the accounts. So anyway, buying is much more fun when it's actually your money. You know what I mean? It's tempting to buy things and, Alaskan toys and stuff. But, for me at least, I enjoy it much more when I'm able to actually pay for it with money and know I'm not just lumping something on the credit card or some sort of revolving debt. I don't know. I don't want to preach to you guys, but I'm just saying that, it can get you something in trouble. Money management, payroll deductions into a savings account. You can set this up either with the employer directly, but I prefer to have personal control. I prefer to do the automatic payments. And most banks, whatever bank you've got, they probably have some investment wing, or you could go direct to one of the the big boys like Fidelity or somebody like that, and they'll debit your account. They're more than happy to help you out, and it's very little overhead in terms of them setting that up, so they aren't charging you some sort of salesman's commission to do that. And then the 401k, I underline that because that is that pays you in two ways. Number one, it puts money away. Now, you can't get at that money until you're 59 and a half. You could get it in an emergency, but you're going to pay a penalty. You're going to pay generally a 10% penalty, plus you're going to get taxed on it, your current income. But the theory with a 401k is that money's going to go away, and it's going to be invested. So, for most of you guys, like 30, 40 years. And then when you're 59 and a half, you can start withdrawing that money at your current income. And if you're smart, hopefully you're, starting to retire or think about retiring, and your income, other than that 401k money that you're taking out, that may be your only money coming out. So maybe you're in a lower tax bracket. Coins, periodic deposit, yeah, that might work, and they can add up, but like I say, I hate coins. I just use a debit card for everything. Anyway, write a check each payday as a percentage of income, deposit. I haven't written a check, and I got to write checks to the guy I buy hay from, but that is the only check I write. Everything else is just electronic, and that whole notion of pay yourself first is, your investments, you ought to just consider them like a bill. Again, that assumes that your credit cards are all paid off. If you're paying interest, before you start making substantial investments, you got to pay off your credit cards. Thought I'd turn that off. Alrighty. Come up with a plan that works for you and stick with it. Don't carry balances on credit cards. So obviously, great minds think alike here. If you're carrying the balances, you can't make that kind of interest, at least not consistently. So those things need to be paid down. Plus, if you have those balances, if you aren't carrying a balance, then you've got one portion of your sort of emergency plan, because that money could be used to fix the car, do whatever, and it may be money that you don't need to keep in cash to cover those things to the same extent. Take full advantage, matching provision, and review itemized statements. Yeah, like I say, there's two reasons to review those statements. I actually went through, I think, 5 or 6 debit cards in 1 year one time, but that was particular to Europe. But what starts in Europe sometimes comes over here in terms of that kind of fraud. And I wasn't making whatever, it was just, oh boy, here we go again. Okay, so let's see where the next slide is. I'm going to roll through these. Somehow the slides got goofed up once again. Spending plan, characteristics of the budget, select a budgeting system, money management. All right, I'm looking at the chat right now. If anybody has any questions, I'm going to try and reload this content on one final time, and then I'm going to just open up the PowerPoint and quickly review the slides to see if there's any gross topics we missed. I don't know if you noticed, but I put a PowerPoint on there about how to submit assignments. I think a lot of you are familiar with it, but obviously there's some particular items that are a little different with each course. And it says it's exporting on the slides. We'll give this one last try. Also how to intercollaborate. Obviously you passed the test if you're here listening to this, so I'm not going to elaborate on that. Show slides being loaded up. We'll give this one last try. Wow. Yeah, it's still got all those blanks in there. Selecting a budget system. We talked about this. 401ks. Don't carry balances. And then it goes off into the ether. I did not have 67 slides as it shows in the window there, so I think we're all right. Let me pull up a PowerPoint. I'm not sure if you'll be able to see it on your screens. But I'll be able to pull it up here just to verify the information and talk about the homework we did. Yeah, I think we've covered the material. What I'm missing is the homework slide. That's why I have a bit of a lack of confidence on thinking this is the final slide. Again, it's kind of a building process. Okay, somebody had a question about last week's video. It sounded like if you don't start a saving plan and plan in your 20s that you won't make it to retirement. Is there no way to get a workable plan past that? No, I'm just saying, I mean, you have to look at your own situation. But I'm just telling you the time value of money, I'm in an age now where I see my friends trying to catch up. Certain things in terms of opportunity cost. In fact, that screen's not working anymore. Not that you guys want to see me. But anyway, in terms of opportunity cost, if you've got a 401k, let's say, available and you aren't using it, essentially you're losing money by not using it. and if there's matching, you're losing even more money. The amount of money that you put in a say a 401k program, that's going to come off the gross, so it's going to put you in a lower tax bracket, which is going to reduce your taxes. So that reduction in taxes, that's money that's essentially being thrown away. If you skip the 401k, you stay in a higher tax bracket, and you're going to have to pay that to the government. So, I mean, not that the government is bad and all the taxes stuff, I'm not going there, but I'm just saying that there's a certain line where, regardless of whether you do the 401k or not, you're gonna, if you don't do the 401k, it doesn't mean you're gonna have all that extra money available. And then there's other things too in terms of saving to buy a house. If you're investing to put down a down payment on a house, that is more than just buying the house. Buying the house also enables you to get, the biggest loophole or tax deduction, depending on how you look at it, the mortgage tax deduction. So, those are certain things. The longer you stay a renter, not investing in some of the retirement programs, those are all things that they penalize you in multiple ways. So, but if you're in your 20s, you're living paycheck to paycheck, maybe, but at a certain point, you got to get out of that mold. You'll never get out of it. What kind of deduction do you get from purchasing a home? You can do quite well. You get the mortgage tax deduction, so that is huge. It used to be, up until, and we're dating ourselves, it's probably 10, 15 years ago now, you used to be able to deduct credit card interest. But anyway, that interest, when you're doing your taxes, probably TurboTax or something like that, plug in a figure like, say, 20 grand worth of mortgage interest and see what happens to your the taxes you owe. It is huge. And then there's quite a few deductions in terms of one-off kind of gifts, where tax deductions are again, they call them loopholes if they don't like them, but tax deductions are really the government trying to force you into behavior that they consider beneficial for society. So people owning houses is a good thing, and realtors that's why the mortgage interest deduction is going to be such a tough one to take away if they ever try, because it makes housing such a good interest. In just the first year, in terms of the mortgage deduction, there's a number of costs. There's so many upfront costs. I'll have to do a little bit more research on that, because the last home I bought, I bought one here in Alaska, but I bought one in Germany as well, and I was limited on what I could do. The other thing was, I'm probably in a different position than some of you guys, because I had a VA loan and I didn't have to put anything down. So my upfront costs, therefore the deductibility of those costs, since I never paid them, was quite a bit lower. But the getting back one thing too, if you are buying a home, regardless of any home, and I think it's probably a once in a lifetime deal, is probably the deal with the Alaska housing folks. But that utility upgrade program is phenomenal. I mean, friends of mine have recommended it to me, and basically took no cash out of pocket. I financed it through one of the folks that they recommended, and it's actually one of the big box stores that, as long as you paid it off their credit card within a year, there was no interest on it. So I spent probably $9,100 on equipment, and amazing amounts of savings on utilities. But I'll do some research again on the, because we are going to have a separate section on mortgages and housing in terms of investment, and I'll make sure I capture all those things. But on a recurring basis, on a year-to-year basis, that mortgage interest deduction is huge. Anybody else got any questions? I mean, we got a few minutes here. We've only gone 35, but I'll figure out what went on with the slides. There weren't that many slides. I think it just somehow inserted some gaps. The homework obviously was missing on these slides, but it is on the version that I posted on Blackboard. So, anything else? We're probably gonna. You might have already gone over this. But how are the tests going to be done? I'm going to put together a thing, kind of on Blackboard again. I don't know how many of you have taken Blackboard tests, but that's how it's going to have to be administered. And I've talked to some of the folks. For example, Terry Fields, who I was mentioned before in that property management section, and they've administered the test via Blackboard and had pretty good results. But we aren't going to, it's not going to be a one-off thing. We're going to fail the test because the thing didn't work. We're going to ops check it. We're going to have a sample test before. We're going to have a video thing before, and don't worry, the mechanization of the test taking is not going to be a factor in your score. So somebody else had a question about, so if you're in your 40s with a 401k and a pension but no savings, is it possible to get enough to retire on? There are a number, if you go to somebody like Fidelity or somebody like that, you can punch in your individual numbers and make it look, it'll give you an idea. Now obviously they're trying to steer you into one of their programs, but there's no obligation to just look it up and plug it in, and it'll do the whole time value of money and everything else and tell you where you want to be sitting. Back to the test again, somebody asked if it was multiple choice, time essay. Obviously not essay. Neither one of us can do that. It will be multiple choice and it will be timed, and that's how it can be done on Blackboard. So the way I envision doing it, and I'll set it up this way, where a question will pop up, the answers will be in a random order. The question will be up there for a specific length of time, and you'll make your answer, and then it'll go away. And so that gets us away from the whole proctoring, which would be impossible to do at all the distant locations. And yeah, the essay thing is not going to work. And also the open book nature of it. It's not going to be an open book test per se, but obviously I'm not sitting next to you. So unless you're you can look up an answer in 15, 20 seconds, we don't really have to worry about that. But I'll go with some standardized questions, and I'll put out a sample beforehand to make sure. Not seeing the homework for chapter 3. I download PowerPoint. There are only 22 slides. There's nothing in the assignment section. I'm going to look at that. I've got 45 minutes before another event. I'm going to double check that. It's not a huge assignment, but it was just one of the problem. I think problem 3. But now that you brought that my attention, I'll download PowerPoint and double check. Anything else? Like I said, also for those of you who didn't watch the video on how to load, collaborate and stuff, I'm gonna take that time restriction off the first assignment because there's too many headaches with books and everything else, and people are still adding. Okay, somebody else had one more question. Not seeing it, just as I have a quick one. Right? I have a quick one. Nope. Okay. I ended up with getting an ebook version of the text. I know some sheets to plan with. Yeah, what we're going to try and do, and I'm going to set this up this weekend, is kind of a longer range homework project. I will get those sheets. They're looking for some sheets to plan with, and I can print them out. Can I post them online? I can't print from the ebook. Sure, yeah. For that specific type thing, if you send me a link or even the PDFs of the, well, you may not be able to. Anyway, if I know which specific sheets you're talking about in terms of planning sheets, it's not at all a problem to put them up in documents. Yeah, just to be sure, the homework for week 1 is due tonight at midnight. That's what I was just saying. I'm going to get rid of that time delay. Or not time delay, time requirement for this first week's homework, because I'm still getting emails about people having problems with books. And the add drop day is not till tomorrow. So what I want to prevent is this whole bulk, homework assignment dump the last week, because that isn't good for your learning, and nor is it good for my trying to get the grade out. So we'll avoid that. But do not worry about, don't sweat the homework for tonight in terms of getting it turned in. You still need to do it, but the time restriction, because it's all automated on Blackboard, and I'm going to remove that. Question? Kindle rental. I didn't know they had this book on Kindle, but yeah, I'll get those sheets, whatever sheets or something else like that. That's easy to add and put stuff out there. Alrighty. Well, we're 40 minutes into it. I think we're pretty much done, right? All right. Well, I'll figure out what happened with the slides. That's always something new. Anyway, we'll figure it out, and see you next week. Bye.